say, oh, the old man. See, the beginning, I remember freshman year, about 5 years ago. I knew him since I was in high school. Not much, but we built up a relationship there. And I believe our first real conversation was about my nickname, Tater. I introduced as Nathan Tate, but I said they would call me Tater around here, and he looks at me, he's like, I would never call you Tater, are you kidding me? Who do you think I am? A week later, he calls me Tater, and he forgot my real name. Back in December, he gave me a phone call telling me that he was diagnosed with cancer. And of course, before then, I was always his handyman. Shoveled his snow, fixed his whatever he needed fixed around the house. He was also, I was also a student of his, and most of you were. It was today, on this day, my freshman year, Dr. Meadows, one day, could not make it to class. So Bob was supposed to cover his class, or her class, and he said, he never showed up. So I give him a call 20 minutes later. I was like, didn't Dr. Meadows say you were supposed to cover her class today? He's like, oh yeah. Well, I'm watching the Waltons now, so good luck with that. I was like, okay. So enjoy Veterans Day. I will. Gomer Pyle comes on next. So we didn't have theory that day. Every night, I'd come home, we would have our talks. I stayed throughout his going away. And every night, even the day after he died, it's hard going upstairs and looking at his bedroom. I haven't really stepped in it that much because I don't like going in there now. Because after he passed away, I felt everything else went. But he taught me a lot of things. He said, you're not a man if you don't keep your shoes clean. If you're not going to succeed. There's 4 things he definitely liked. His music, his coffee, his oatmeal. I won't name the 4th. But he always said, when fortune comes, pull her a chair. I'll miss him a lot. And it'll be hard. Last night I was going through his cell phone and going down his friends list, and I was making calls late at night. And I ran into a guy named Bill Peppers, Bill Peppers or something like that. And it was an old friend of his. He went to the military band. I think it's one of the few friends he had that was still living today. And he told me about the favorite parts, and it is true, favorite parts in his life, I believe, was the military band and going through JFK. He always said stories about JFK and the bands he had to do for him, and I think the saddest part of his day is when JFK died, and he had to play at his funeral, and I believe he wrote a story about that and sent that out. But he was an introvert, you know. He kept to himself a lot. But he did love his students. He talked about them every day, almost, checking on them and asking me how they were doing and stuff like that. He'll be missed. So.
You know, speaking of coffee, as we transition to the next person here, Bob always said that the coffee that you drink should be strong enough that it salutes you at the end of the day. And in honor of Bob, I am drinking very strong coffee today. I made a cup of coffee over the weekend in my little homebrew thing. I have a single cup thing. You put the filter in, not one of those Keurig deals, like an actual coffee thing. And you put the filter in and the coffee goes through it. So I was looking at it Sunday, because I hadn't thrown it away yet. That's not very sanitary. But the grounds were so thick, they had almost solidified. And I also thought, wow, Bob's in there too. He liked his coffee really strong, that's for sure. We have some more people, I believe, that would like to speak. Karen, would you like to say a few words?
Morning. One of the best parts of being a member of the Wesleyan community is all of the intergenerational relationships that you're able to have. You meet people, you spend time with people that in another circumstance you would really never have an opportunity to even speak to. And Bob and I had one of those unlikely friendships. Rob, when he was here as a student, worked for me as a work study. And Mary Jo and I were really good friends, and we shared that motherhood bond when she was here. And Bob and I, we shared the technology bond. He'd call my cell phone, and all he'd have to say was, "Hello, dear, call me back." That was it. He didn't, it didn't matter what it was about. I spent many hours at his house hooking up laptops to Suddenlink or to Wesleyan, or finding a piece of video that he really wanted to share with his students and just possibly couldn't get to on his own. Sometimes I would have to take my children with me. It would be summertime or holiday time, and he was always very careful. Do you know where they are? Are they? Can you see them? He had, I think, the same attributes with everyone, and I was I felt very welcomed into his life. I knew that friendship with him meant a whole lot. He would have conversations with me about he being a hawk and me being a dove, and the first time he had that, I had to go and look it up on the internet, call my husband and say, "What's he talking about?" But he was very proud of being an American. He was very proud of his music. And one of his favorite stories, and my favorite stories of his, was of playing for the inauguration of JFK. And it having poured the snow on Washington, D.C., and them having to clear the streets. And they called in thousands of Boy Scouts, and they called in the Army Corps of Engineers and the fire department. And the first thing they decided to do was to use the fire engines and try to wash the snow off the streets, because it had warmed up a little, and they thought, let's just wash the snow away. And when that turned to ice, he told the story of watching them use the flamethrowers. And I looked that up yesterday, and it's true. It's true. He had many wonderful stories, and I think he had an absolutely beautiful soul. He also taught me how to cook tofu, and wanted to share his cookbook, The Joy of Cooking, with me when we talked about the movie, Julie and Julia, from Julia Child. He loved music. He loved imparting that beauty to students. Those trips to the elementary schools with percussion ensemble were something he was very proud of. You can still go to www.wwc.edu/percussion ensemble and hear some of the music and see some of the photos from the archives of those trips. He was proud to be at Wesleyan, and I agree with Rob. I think he really did have a home here that he appreciated very much.
I believe, Mark, you'd like to say a few words?
I met Bob back in 1996. That was the year I started teaching here at Wesleyan. And over those 18 years, we developed a very unique friendship. And from listening to everyone else talk, I realized early on that Bob didn't treat me any different than he would change or melody. Anybody, even the students. He had a great respect for everybody. And I really like that about him. And really, hardly a week would go by without him stopping by my office just to talk with me for a while. So he would sit a while. He'd ask about my family, knew them all by name. He'd ask about students. He'd share a joke every now and then too, of course. Everybody knows that. The one he always liked to tell me was, you know, you get a guitar player to quit noodling. Put a sheet of music in front of him. 18 years ago. And I told him one day, I said, I always knew if the stage was level, if the drummer was drooling out of both sides of his mouth. I would say it like that. He could take it, and he could give it. And he told me a lot of jokes over the years, but I can't tell them I'm here. He told me a lot of stories. I can't tell any of those stories. I had a hard time deciding what I was going to say today. But one thing I wanted to add was my wife Shannon. She's a nurse, an RN. She teaches at Fred Everett. And she was with them there at Holbrook's quite a bit. And I went over to see Bob quite a few times, and one of the times he was still able to talk to me. I was sitting there with him, and he was asking about my family, of course. I was very concerned about himself. And the nurse came in and was giving him his medication. And she had finished up and walked out, and I said, well, Bob, they send all the pretty nurses to come in and give you your meds, don't they? He said, yeah, like your wife. You know, he thought a lot of it. Yeah, I can't tell you another stories, but you know, I'll tell you this: he loved teaching, he loved the students, and if he seemed hard on you as a teacher, it's because he cared, and he wanted you to shine. And that's rare these days. You should consider it a privilege to have been one of Bob's students, just as I consider it a privilege to have Bob's friend.
I believe at this time, Tom Schaufler, are you about? You have something to read?